The movie begins with a dramatic scene of a spaceship blasting off from Earth. We're introduced to three main characters: Mission Commander Marina Barnett, biologist David Kim, and medical researcher Zoe Levinson. The story takes place in the future, where humans are trying to make Mars a habitable planet. The mission is crucial, as it aims to transform Mars into a planet that can support human life. The three astronauts are about to embark on a 2-year journey to Mars, where they'll conduct experiments and research at a colony already established on the planet. David will focus on his biology research, while Zoe will work on her medical projects. This is a significant milestone for David and Zoe, as it's their first time on a space mission. However, they've been selected from a pool of talented individuals from around the world, which speaks to their exceptional skills and expertise. Commander Marina, on the other hand, is a seasoned astronaut with multiple missions under her belt. The stakes are high, as a lot of money and resources have been invested in this mission. The entire world is watching, and people's expectations are riding on the success of this endeavor. With the background of the movie set, let's dive into the story and see what unfolds. The movie starts with an exciting scene of the spaceship taking off from Earth. This shows what it's like for astronauts to leave the planet and go into space. Commander Marina looks worried for a moment, like something might be wrong with the launch. She's talking to Mission Control at the Hyperion station, and it seems like she might need to escape. But the station tells her everything is okay, and soon they're out of Earth's orbit and in space. The crew is very happy to have made it to space, but David feels a bit sick because it's his first time in space. After that, their spaceship connects to a long 450-meter-long cable that gives them power from the sun and creates artificial gravity. This connection goes smoothly, and the crew is now on their way to Mars. As they travel through space, the crew is doing a great job. They even talk to people on Earth and do a live interview. We learn that this is Commander Marina's last mission before she retires. David loves his wife, but this research is very important to him, so he's willing to be away from her for a while. Zoe is thrilled to be on her first space mission, which has been a dream of hers. So far, everything is going well, and the crew is happy to be on their way to Mars. The story takes a shocking turn when Commander Marina discovers blood in one of the ship's modules. As she investigates, she's stunned to find an unconscious man trapped inside. Just as he's about to fall, Marina tries to save him, but in the process, she injures her hand. To make matters worse, the device that maintains the ship's air supply is damaged in the fall. Zoe and David soon arrive on the scene and rush the man to medical treatment, as his pelvis has been severely injured. Commander Marina contacts Mission Control at Hyperion to report the unexpected passenger, and after checking his ID, they discover that he's a launch support engineer. But how did he end up on the ship? Hyperion is just as baffled, and Marina wonders if they should restrain him, suspecting that he might have intentionally stowed away. However, Hyperion advises against taking any action for the time being, suggesting that they let the situation unfold. In the next scene, the three astronauts are visibly shaken, struggling to comprehend how this could have happened. This is no ordinary mission, and they can't fathom how Hyperion's control station could have made such a critical mistake. Zoe and David tend to Michael's wounds, stitching him up and providing medical care. Meanwhile, Commander Marina also receives treatment for her injured hand, with Zoe applying a plaster to help it heal. However, Marina soon receives some bad news. The damaged device in the module has caused a spike in CO2 levels in the ship's air. The crew quickly springs into action, using connectors to regulate the air and prevent a crisis. After a few hours, Michael regains consciousness, but he's immediately overwhelmed by his surroundings. As he takes in the sight of the Earth as a distant blue sphere, he loses consciousness again. Zoe and the others rush to his side, trying to calm him down. Once Michael regains his composure, Commander Marina begins to question him about how he ended up on the ship. Michael seems genuinely confused and scared, insisting that he didn't mean to be on the mission and that he wants to go home to his sister. However, he can't remember anything about how he got there. The crew tries to reassure him, but Michael becomes panicked again. Zoe intervenes, urging him to take deep breaths and calm down. As the scene unfolds, Marina, David, and Zoe are visibly worried about the mission and the unexpected presence of Michael. They're concerned about the implications of having an extra person on board, especially since they're on a 2-year mission. Later, the crew is seen eating together, with Michael joining them. He's clearly still shaken, but he's trying to compose himself. Michael apologizes to Marina for his outburst earlier, explaining that he was in shock and scared by his sudden surroundings. He acknowledges the importance of the mission and assures them that he didn't intentionally stow away. He expresses his willingness to help and learn, saying that he doesn't want to be a burden. However, Marina remains cautious, telling him that they need to contact Hyperion for further instructions. As the commander, Marina feels a heavy responsibility weighing on her shoulders. She's unsure of what to do with Michael. Michael, and the situation is becoming increasingly complicated. David and Zoe, on the other hand, are kind and welcoming towards Michael. They realize that it's not his fault that he's on the ship and that he probably fainted during maintenance work on the module. They ask him about his life, and Michael shares that he was pursuing a master's degree in engineering and was planning to apply for a mission. Zoe jokes that he doesn't need to apply now, since he's already on one. Michael starts to feel more at ease, but he's still anxious about his situation. He's worried that he might be seen as a liability, a mere worker who could put the entire mission in jeopardy. In the first few days, Zoe teaches Michael the essential safety rules for surviving in space. This is crucial because anything can happen in space. Later, David tells Zoe that Michael will start helping him with data entry tasks from the next day. This is exactly what happens, and Michael begins working with David. As they work together, Michael and David have many conversations and start to form a strong bond. Meanwhile, Marina is dealing with a serious problem on the ship. The compartment where Michael was found has a damaged device that's critical for the crew's breathing. Marina sends Zoe to investigate and shut down the air log of the module. Zoe also checks the device and takes pictures, which Marina sends to Hyperion Mission Control. However, Mission Control orders Marina to open the entire device, so she sends Michael, wearing a spacesuit, to assist Zoe in removing the device. Michael is happy to be useful and feels hopeful that they can complete the mission together. Later, Marina takes David aside and shares the bad news that the CD and device are beyond repair. As a biologist, David is responsible for finding a way to produce oxygen. Marina explains that they have LG, which can produce oxygen, but it was meant for testing on Mars. The special equipment needed to make it work is not available, and they only have masks. If David uses all the LG on the ship, there will be nothing left to test on Mars, making the mission pointless. But if David doesn't produce oxygen, everyone on the ship will die because they are already running out of oxygen. This is a critical situation, and David must find a way to produce oxygen to save the crew. David decides to use half of the LG to produce oxygen, which will at least allow them to make further plans. He repeats this process in the future. However, the problem is that Michael's arrival has accelerated the depletion of oxygen. Later, Michael's wound starts bleeding again, and Zoe treats him once more. Michael thanks Zoe for taking care of him and giving him work, saying that he no longer feels like a burden. As time passes, the crew should be receiving further instructions from Mission Command. However, they still struggle with oxygen production because David's LG farm is not producing enough oxygen to sustain 4 people. David is forced to use the remaining LG, but the next day he faces failure again as the half LG is also depleted, killing their last hope. The mission is now secondary to their struggle for survival. Commander Marina reveals that the ship was originally designed for only 2 people. Hyperion had somehow managed to accommodate a third person, but given the current situation, the ship can only sustain 2 people, not 4. This means that Michael's presence is a threat to the others, as every breath he takes reduces their chances of survival. With only 6 months to go before they reach Mars, the crew will likely die soon due to the oxygen shortage. Zoe asks if Mission Control is doing anything to help their situation and if they have any suggestions. However, Marina reveals that millions of people have thought about other possibilities, but there seems to be no way out. In reality, Marina and Mission Control have been considering a drastic solution. If Michael were to die, the remaining 3 crew members might be able to make it to Mars alive, where they would be rescued as soon as they enter Mars's orbit. However, Zoe is adamant that they cannot kill another human being, and she refuses to consider this option. Only the 3 crew members are aware of this situation, and they have not yet told Michael about it. If they were to reveal this to him directly, he might become violent and even harm them. Zoe asks for a few more days to find an alternative solution, hoping to avoid killing Michael. David, on the other hand, is more inclined to agree with Marina and Mission Control, as the mission is of great importance and a lot has been invested in it. Marina does not dismiss Zoe's concerns, but instead gives her a few more days to come up with a solution. Meanwhile, Michael remains unaware of the danger he poses to the others. Marina also requests alternative solutions from Mission Control, but their response remains the same. Michael must die in order for the others to survive. In a private conversation, David tells Marina that they are putting themselves in danger by keeping Michael alive, and that Zoe doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. David believes that Michael was doomed from the moment he boarded the ship, and that even Marina cannot bring herself to kill him directly. As time runs out, the crew's oxygen supply continues to dwindle, and if they don't find a solution soon, they will all die together. Michael, an innocent and ordinary person, had formed a strong bond with Zoe, who couldn't bring herself to think of killing him. During one of his treatments, Zoe notices burn marks on his stomach, and Michael shares a heartbreaking story about his past. When he was 9 years old, there was a fire in his apartment, and his brave father sacrificed his life to save him and his sisters. Since then, Michael has been living with his sister, taking on the role of her guardian and loving her dearly. He has often spoken about her since arriving on the ship. That night, David approaches Michael with an injection and reveals the truth about the danger he poses to the others. He explains that if Michael stays alive, the others will die. Michael is devastated, tears streaming down his face, feeling powerless and helpless. David leaves the injection with him, saying it won't hurt and that he'll just fall asleep. After David leaves, Michael breaks down, crying uncontrollably. He records a message for his sister, contemplating suicide. Just as he's about to inject himself, Zoe bursts in and discovers the truth about David's intentions. She stops Michael from killing himself and shares a personal story. Before joining the mission, she had a job where she monitored a beach from a distance, ensuring that no one swam in the restricted area. One day, while she was distracted, two mischievous boys who had been drinking ventured into the sea, and one of them drowned. The memory of that boy's death still haunts her, and she blames herself for not being able to prevent it. If Michael were to die, she wouldn't be able to forgive herself for the rest of her life. After stopping Michael from killing himself, Zoe confronts David, demanding to know why he tried to manipulate Michael into committing suicide. David becomes defensive, arguing that his entire life's research is at stake and that he has sacrificed everything to save Michael. He points out that he used all the LG meant for Mars to produce oxygen to keep Michael alive. Zoe remains silent, but she has an idea related to the ship's connected theater, which could provide oxygen. She suggests going out to the theater, which is 450 meters away, to retrieve oxygen. The theater has a pipe that can supply oxygen, and it also receives solar power. With no other options, Marina agrees to Zoe's plan. Zoe prepares to take Michael with her, but Marina decides to send David instead, despite him not being suitable for the mission. David, Zoe, and the oxygen cylinders set out towards the theater while Marina and Michael remain on the ship. As they journey through space, they experience artificial gravity to some extent, but as they reach the halfway point, they start to feel zero gravity, which helps prevent indigestion. Finally, they reach their destination, and Zoe takes a risk by venturing into the compartment to retrieve oxygen. She's relieved to find that there's enough oxygen to fill at least 2 cylinders, but the exact amount remains unknown until she reaches the bottom of the compartment. With the first cylinder filled, everyone is overjoyed, knowing that this much oxygen could sustain all 4 of them until they reach Mars. However, their happiness is short-lived, as they soon discover that a solar storm is rapidly approaching. In the chaos, only Zoe manages to grab one of the cylinders and make it back to the ship. Tragically, the other cylinder falls into deep space, shattering their hopes. As the solar storm intensifies, the crew is forced to take shelter inside the ship, awaiting their fate. David laments that if they had successfully retrieved both cylinders, they could have saved 3 lives. Zoe, who had taken the risk of venturing into the storm, is now determined to sacrifice herself to retrieve the remaining cylinder. Commander Marina doesn't stop her, knowing that her decision could save 3 lives. Zoe bravely faces the solar storm, despite the dangers of radiation to humans. Radiation can cause severe damage to the human body, but Zoe perseveres, driven by her determination to save her crewmates. Miraculously, she succeeds in bringing back the cylinder, giving her life to save the lives of 3 others. In the final scene, we see Zoe sitting on the ship, taking her last breath. The movie ends here, leaving us to assume that the remaining 3 crew members successfully reached Mars and were eventually rescued. I hope you enjoyed this story.